According to a report published by the Pentagon on China's military power recently, Beijing's armed forces were expanding at a fast rate which could soon contest U.S. military superiority. The congressionally-mandated report stated that China was trying to transform its military into a major global power by any means necessary. However, while the country was close to matching the military strength of the United States in some regards, will the latter still have an upper hand in a number of defense aspects? Well, let's have a look. Coming first to the general information, Washington, D.C. has been the federal capital city of the United States since 1802, whereas the capital city of China is Beijing. China is the giant of the East. According to the latest population census, China reaches the astonishing number of 1.435 billion population. On the other hand, USA has only 330.7 million people, or more than 4 times less citizens than China. The US is a country of 50 states covering an area of 9.834 million square kilometers. It is the third largest country on Earth. Covering approximately 9.59 million square kilometers, China is the world's 4th largest country by area. Before going further to military, let's compare their oil resources. Since oil became important for militaries in the years before World War I, as many of the leading navies of the time began switching from coal to oil to power their ships. Every year, the U.S. Armed Forces consume more than 100 million barrels of oil to power ships, vehicles, aircraft, and ground operations. The United States produced 9.3 million barrels per day, whereas China produced 3.8 million barrels. In 2019, the United States consumed an average of about 20 million barrels of oil per day, whereas China consumed 13.5 million barrels of oil per day. Even the proven resources too, the US is large compared to China. Now let's talk about manpower. Well, the numbers don't tell us everything we might want to know about relative military power, but they do give a different and more accurate picture of the global distribution of military muscle. The US have 1.3 million active personnel, whereas China has 2.3 million active personnel. In terms of reserve personnel, the US is large compared to China. America's massive military spending reflects its technology-oriented approach to warfare, a paradigm which seeks to send a drone or guided missile in place of a man whenever possible, especially as every friendly casualty may result in a political firestorm. China today has the largest military on the planet with 2 million active personnel in the People's Liberation Army. They seem to rely mostly on its soldier population. For the same purpose, Chinese army has a military budget of $175 billion according to the latest updates, or 4 times less than USA. The military budget for USA accounts 3.2% of its GDP, whereas China accounted for only 1.9% of its total GDP. The Chinese government is working to make its military stronger, more efficient, and more technologically advanced to become a top-tier force, especially the ground forces, which have been the backbone and main strength of the People's Liberation Army. Indeed, their strength are higher compared to the United States, but let's compare the number of equipments on land. USA has 8,370 numbers of tanks, while China has 6,960 numbers. The number of armored fighting vehicles for USA is about 7 times more than that of China. However, the People's Liberation Army Force has more self-propelled artillery, rocket projectors, and field artillery compared to the United States. The US military operates over 2,000 4th-generation combat jets, increasingly being supplemented by 5th-generation stealth designs. These newer US planes theoretically enjoy a massive edge in long-range aerial combat and in penetrating enemy airspace. The People's Liberation Air Force has 1,668 aircraft, roughly a third are dated J-7 fighters, while another fourth include modern 4th-generation J-10s and J-11s comparable to US F-15s and F-16s, and even a few 5th-generation stealth fighters. Now let's talk numbers. In terms of combat aircraft, USA is just a bit more than China, but they have 5 times more helicopters compared to China. USA have 945 transports while China have 224. Even in terms of trainers too, USA is far more compared to China. This all makes 13,264 numbers of total aircraft for USA and 3,210 that of China. It is at sea that the United States and China are most openly in competition. The United States has been the world's leading maritime power for decades. However, the US Navy could find itself in China's wake if current trends continue. The modernization of the Chinese Navy, also known as People's Liberation Navy, has been underway since the 1990s, and its fleet has greatly expanded. China's Navy now outnumbers the US Navy by 777 to 490 fleet. The US has 20 aircraft carriers versus 2 for China. China matches the US in the number of submarines at 74, but about 2/3 are diesel submarines. China now has mostly converted to modern ships and submarines. The US has 91 destroyers versus 36 for China, and the US ships are still much larger and more powerful, and about 100 of China's ships are coastal frigates and corvettes. The frigates and corvettes are really a stronger coast guard. China needs a stronger coast guard because of the many ships of Japan, India, and Russia. Talking about nuclear arsenals, USA was the first country to manufacture nuclear weapons, and it is the only country to have used them in combat with the separate bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in World War II. As of 2019, the US has an inventory of 6,185 nuclear warheads, and 1,750 of which have been deployed. The number of nuclear warheads in China's arsenal is a state secret. China is estimated by the SIPRI to have an arsenal of about 290 total warheads as of 2018. According to some estimates, the country could more than double the number of warheads on missiles that could threaten the United States by the mid-2020s.